So you might not have heard that, but Sergio just said, "Let's go," and we're good to go. Sergio, how are you this morning?
I'm a bit shocked that I'm here with you guys, and I still don't know for sure what we're going to talk about. And I still have a number of things that are waiting for me after that. So I'm really curious. I hope there are also some other people that are curious about what's going to happen. So yeah, I think
I love it.
that's
And
where.
since we're starting on the honest side, Sergio, can you share just for the to keep it real, what's on your mind these days? Entrepreneur doing stuff. What are some things that you're trying to solve these days?
Yeah, the normal entrepreneur stuff. I think it's the thing that we are going through, and which is, the choices that we have to make. And this sounds very philosophical and very deep, but at the end of the day, is so how do I plan the next funding round? Planning is one thing, reality is another thing. Do I have some possibility of a bridge that would push the round a bit later, get bigger numbers, get a bigger round? In the meantime, of course, how do I go about, hiring a CFO, because I'm still so late in the process and I need some extra structure in the numbers. And in the meantime, of course, will I go to the States for this conference in 2 weeks from now, or will that eat too much time out of my time in order to do anything else? And hey, by the way, where is my family in all this? When is the last time that I've met them? Are they alive? And and no, I'm kidding. But is like I need to go tomorrow and come back tomorrow to London, which is like from 4 in the morning to post midnight. And do I have any plan for the weekend? Is the weekend to work, or the weekend to do something that is nice? So it's all this avalanche of things. And in the meantime, of course, because this is starting to become a bigger organization, there is a lot of things that gets thrown at you, and you still have to do something with all the things that get thrown at you, because otherwise you wouldn't survive. So yeah, that's juggling.
In the middle of all this, Stoyan is asking you to come to his podcast and share some thoughts. So
No,
I
but I
love the take
love,
on
I
it.
love, I love coming to your podcast and talking to you, because I think people that are there starting companies and looking at what is important and what's not important. Uh, I think they need a bit of uh, visibility of what other people in their shoes have been doing or are doing now. And we need the it's this what's this entrepreneurs anonymous kind of group of support group, where we have to support each other to some extent. And hey, it's okay, you're gonna survive, you can do it. Yeah, it's that kind of
And
thing.
you're smiling, Sergio. But I do think we do not talk enough about the real stuff.
Mm.
And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, and one of the reasons we have featured you as well in our book, Perform
Very
the
good book, very good
Unsexy
book.
Truth About Startup Success. Thank you so much. By the way, for those of you who are listening, Sergio contributed with the opening quote. We actually had half an hour interview. I asked him all these questions about culture and how do you build a team and so on. And we incorporated some of the learnings, but I was like, give me a quote, man. Give me something that's, because I know you're a no BS person. You tell things as they are. And I'm gonna read the quote, and I think we can maybe start from there. The quote was, the everyday life of an entrepreneur is digging a muddy trench. There's very little glamour. Three things are essential. Dig further every day, rise up for a helicopter view every month, celebrate every success every time. And then one can move ahead and graciously bear all the blood, sweat, and sorrow.
That sounds very deep, man. Are you sure I said it? Okay.
No, but I'm actually. Can you actually maybe elaborate on that? I mean,
Yeah.
and
Well,
talking about the real journey, right? Like, why did
yeah.
you decide to actually send me this quote? Talking about. I
I
mean,
think
it's not. Mhm.
I think we are living surrounded by stories. There's real stories, and but you never get the real part of the story. You always get the story as it is told by the people that have seen it, by the people that applaud it from the side, and stuff like that. And I had this impression as I'm getting to be a entrepreneur and build a company, that shit, it looked a lot nicer when you saw it on in the stories of these great guys that have achieved great success, and it's all about, wow, this is so powerful. But it's very little told about all the hard work and all the sacrifices and all the pain and all the uncertainty that you have to bear with throughout the process. And what can you do to survive in this in this context, to survive as a human, as an optimistic, keep your morale, and be there for the other people, because at the end of the day you're going to support an entire organization, and you have to be their anchor of certainty when shit happens, because shit happens. It's a startup, always shit happens. So I think that's where I wanted to reflect a little bit and say, hey guys, it's not all glamour and beauty and the spotlight of the cameras and success. Eventually a bit of that might come at some point, but you actually have to love what you're doing when digging that muddy trench. And you have to have this balanced view and reflect on what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing, and be there present with your mind in order to drive things further in an intelligent way. And intelligent way is an absolute must, because as a startupper, you don't have all the resources to do everything. And because of that, you have to choose. And choosing which trench do you dig, and where do you build a bridge, where do you put stairs and stuff like that, can't be done while you're digging. It needs this mental break. And then, of course, because it's so muddy and wet and cold and everything that you can talk about, and so intense, I think it's important to take a break every now and then. Not for you. That's very interesting. If you're an entrepreneur, not for you, you take the break. You take the break for your team, to acknowledge the progress, to acknowledge and celebrate what has happened. Because otherwise, people get exhausted. Yeah. Get exhausted, and not you, not the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur doesn't get exhausted. The entrepreneur is a superhuman, as you have read from all the books and you have listened to all the podcasts, sure. But the other guys need to see that you have achieved something. The other guys need to celebrate. You need to celebrate with them. So I think that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, thank you for reminding us that it's not just about us being peak performers and doing the best that we can, but we should always put in the equation, how do my actions and behaviors affect the team and everybody that is around me? Even if that could be short-term, very productive to do, would that be actually smart to do in terms of the bigger picture? And like always kind of being aware about the team, the partners, everybody that's part of the whole journey. But Sergiu, tell us a little bit, and I'm sure some people who are especially in the region who are following what's going on, they know about FintechOS, but could you maybe give us a perspective around, how big is the company these days? When did you guys start? Oh. And actually, why did you start? You've been quite a successful business person working for different companies, and how did you?
Yeah, man, I ask myself the same question. Why did I?
I had a good life.
Exactly. I had a good life. I was sort of very independent consultant, lecturer, board advisor, angel investor. So everything was, well lined up for me, making enough cash to pay my bills, making enough investments to have some extra, some good results, getting some good income. Suddenly, I don't know what happened, and I got into this situation. No, I know what happened. And I think it's a bit of a construct and a bit of luck, or bad luck. It depends, but it's a bit of planning and a bit of serendipity in getting where we are now. And my bit of plan was that I was trying to get closer and closer to real technology business, real product technology business, and I did that like quite programmatically over the last, I don't know, 10 years, in trying to identify initially like business opportunities, but also seeking back in my heart the opportunity to go back in the driving seat, to go back into building something, not only in, if you want, advising from the board. Because after a few years of being outside of the battle, so to speak, being just a general at the strategy table, but not getting into the war, you kind of become a bit more theoretical about things. So you think some things can be done a lot easier than they actually are when you deal with like real people in a real market with real customers and so on. So it was that part was planned. What was the so it's was meeting the serendipity moment, because serendipity is like a train that comes at a railway station and passes. You can hop on the train, but you have to be at the train station for that. If you don't go to the train station, you can't catch the train ever. So that's the part with getting ready for what happens. So what happened is that I met Thiobli Darush, and I met Thiobli Darush when on an opportunity that did not sound so glamorous. It was
at the train station.
Yeah. It was exactly. It was the train station looked like a train station. Didn't look like a a unicorn barn. Yeah. So. What we had as a first meeting was a possibility for me to become partner with him in his previous business, which was a very standard Eastern European outsourcing business, of course with some touches of originality, differentiation, and so on, but it was still an outsourcing business, as probably hundreds of entrepreneurs in the region have built. But it was clear for both of us from the moment that we started working together that was not the end game. That we were not partnered together in that company to be partners together in that company, but in order to have a base to build upon as a next level. And the next level came when we started to incubate this idea of a platform that would massively accelerate the technology development for financial institutions. And we had some ideas. I mean, he had some ideas, amazing product ideas on how to put this together. And I was constantly saying, look, but this is not the kind of product that you can incubate in a 200 people outsourcing firm. This is the kind of product that you launch with a handful of people, and you get VC financing, and you get more VC financing, and you build more, and you hire more, and you get more VC financing, and you build more, and you hire more, and you sell more, and so on. And it can grow so fast if you look at what is happening with other successful technology companies. And one day, and that was in the summer of 2017, so less than 5 years ago, he said, look, I'm going to quit the other company where he was basically the GM. I'm going to quit. Do you join me to start this as a fully blown new entity that would do this product, FintechOS? It took me a long 20 seconds to say yes. We had a few beers more after that happy moment of decision. And
you really thought it through, huh?
yeah. And the rest is the rest is what we've seen today. So fast forward 4 years and a few months later, because we incorporated at the end of 2017, and we have now a bit more than 4 years of history. We are, I would say, maybe 450 today as number of people. We got a Series B of 60 million last year. A total funding of maybe I would call 95 million so far, if I include some debt and so on. And we are on track to get a Series C probably next year, and have that round a number of times larger than the previous ones, and everything as aligned. Of course, if the world doesn't collapse in the meantime. Now, the thing is, we were we were again a bit lucky to see when we enter the market. You enter the market always with an idea, and you're trying to pivot into something that the market needs from that initial concept, that initial MVP. We were lucky to see that what we are trying to do, the approach that we have on, again, building technology for the financial sector, is different than what other bigger companies that were there earlier have done. Is different in a way that makes this production of solutions for the financial sector makes it a lot faster and a lot more agile, a lot more flexible, a lot more what everybody is looking for, future-proof. And this is because what we are, our approach to it is, first, you have to have super fast, super high productivity. You can't go and write code anymore. That is too slow. That is too slow. And if you want to have, even if you want to have, you're saying you're an existing bank, let's say, and you have 30, 40 software providers, most of them SaaS, most of them with new releases and stuff. And you have to continuously arbitrate and integrate more and ensure the automation flows and make sure that you have a single customer view. It's bloody complex, and it doesn't work if you do it, with programming. It's too slow. You don't have that power. Okay, so how about reinventing it and using no code and using pre-built solutions and using product designers and using data connectors, and in order to accelerate that part as much and let the business people focus on the business, and then if you want to streamline that transformation of the business concepts, the business flows, customer experiences into the reality that is facilitated by technology. So we managed to do that. And at the same time, we also realized that in the space that we are in, this thing of being at the same time the platform and the integrated vertical solutions is something that other people don't do. The industry is still enslaved by this extra siloed solutions. You have a vertical solution for SME lending, you have a vertical solution for loan origination, you have a vertical solution for I don't know what. It's plenty of vertical solutions. Or you have very layered SaaS things. You have digital engagement solutions that are used to build apps. You have automation middlewares that are used to build processes, and you have core systems that are there to stay forever. Yeah. Well, why is that? I mean, if you look at the new players, you look at Revolut, do they actually think like that? No, they think of customer experience and whatever software I can assemble that will fit into a better customer experience. So how about we create that machine that delivers that customer experience, and not at the superficial level, not the shiny screen, but the full-blown process that allows integration and so on. So if we build that machine, and we built that machine, and we are building continuously on that machine, then probably there is an angle for us into this big industry of financial services that we can claim. And we're claiming it. And we're claiming it with quite an impressive success so far. Of course, I'm frustrated that the success isn't larger, that not everybody on the street says, hey, guys, it's FintechOS. I'm so happy that you finally exist. It doesn't happen quite like that. It's still enterprise sales, so you still have to go there and meet clients, and you tell them why you think the automobile is better than a carriage. Really, and that's there's a lot of discussions over there, but I think we're on the right track, and the numbers and what is happening in the market and the fundraise and the results of the clients show that we have some level of success that kind of makes me optimistic. So
yeah, absolutely, Sergio. And for me, being in the startup environment, working with many startups, seems like you guys are doing something right. Like in less than 5 years, with the traction, the success and achievement that you've achieved so far. So congratulations on that. But again, we both know this is just like a stepping stone, right? And then there's quite ahead in the journey ahead. But I want to go back a little bit. There's many early stage founders who are listening to the podcast, and I'm sure they will appreciate all of these lessons and learnings that you're sharing. But I remember listening to a podcast that you did, and you mentioned, I'm going to quote you here, there is a tiny difference between vision and hallucination. Can you talk to me about that? I think many of the early stage founders would love to hear
Yeah.
the.
Look, I think this is very authentic, and it's not actually my quote. I quoted somebody else. I quoted my partner Theo Blidarush in this, because at the very early stages, you have a vision, you have a sort of a vision, and the reality check is you talk to people and you see it, because and we had quite a number of these your early stage discussions, founder to founder, and it was everything around. Look, I have this thing in my mind, and I cannot be sure if it's vision or hallucination. What do you think? You know, and because you can always, what do they say? You can always connect the dots backwards. Yeah, backwards, it looks like, wow, that has been this amazing vision, and it was so clearly step by step implemented. But it's never that clear at that moment where you're actually debating, and some things are just a bit of hallucination, and you get to fix them around the in time. It's the, if you want, is the test of implementation, is the test of execution that makes the difference. If you have a dream that seems a bit out of this world, it can be a vision. If you can execute it, it can be a hallucination if you can't and nobody else can.
And Sergio, where is the sweet spot between having ambitious, audacious goals and at the same time not going too far, but being actually practical and realistic about what are we capable to?
Look, I don't really have an answer to that, and I think no one has. But I tend to see that people that have achieved greater success, those accidents that we look up to, either they have been extremely lucky, like the luck, that poured on them and formed the mountain around them and submerged them into that much luck, or they were abnormally audacious and they got it right. Abnormally ambitious, abnormally high expectation of themselves and people around them, which is a bit annoying, because it means, hey, I can, the higher the expectations, the higher the ambition, the higher the chances of failure, right? So the smaller the percentage of making it into that bracket, if you want. And this is, if you want, I'm going to be very philosophical now. Luckily, my gray beard helps. So you realize that so many people that you meet in your career get to a cozy spot in their career where things work fine for them. And everything is kind of aligned. They are reasonably successful, and they are at the point where they can grow 10% per year. I don't know, in money, in career, in image, in whatever, plateau, and be happy. And most of the people take that opportunity. They don't jump out of their comfort zone to challenge themselves, to risk losing that sweet spot in favor of something much greater. Now, the guys that I'm talking about, they don't give a shit. They are happy and ready to lose that sweet spot, even if that sweet spot is amazing, in order to challenge themselves and get to a much higher level, to a much higher potential, and so on. The people that are able to do that are challenging themselves on how much faster can this thing grow, not on how do I manage this in order not to lose what I gained. People like this are much more focused on their ambition, and that ambition is very dynamic and always grows faster than the reality. And in pursuing that ambition, rather than if what keeping a status quo and improving it gradually. So while if we would all do that as a society, I think it would be catastrophic for our lives, because the failure rate is too high, and there is not enough stability in the economy if you build it like that. At the same time, I can't stop from seeing that many early stage entrepreneurs would have a much higher chance of success if they would be more risky and be more aggressive about fundraise, be more aggressive about hiring absurdly expensive resources in order to expand much faster, both on the product side and on the go-to-market side, and in presence in markets where they don't necessarily have an initial base, and approach all that expansion without that much of a safety net at much higher speed with much higher risk. Now, beware. I'm not sure this is what I preach. This is what I observe. I'm not sure this is good for everyone. I think this is good only for some that can live with the idea, yeah, I tried, but I failed. Yeah. So I'm not sure if for each of the early stage entrepreneur, the route is get more risk, spend more money, raise more money, either, make it or break it, because there is a make it zone that is cozy and good, that is waiting for you, and you might find yourself happier in that, cozier place.
Thank you so much, Serge. This is awesome, man. I cannot relate anymore, especially from somebody growing also in the region we like to call in the book New Europe, in Central Eastern Europe. I cannot say that when I was growing up, kind of the mentality was like dream big, be ambitious. Like it was more like study hard, get a job, work hard, be consistent. Like, but nobody was teaching us in the educational system, or like you gotta dream big, you gotta set big goals. But I do agree. It's really about self-awareness. Like you can have a nice business, small business, growing slowly in a nice way, and have a cozy life, and maybe spend more time with a family if that's what you like to do. But I think it's also quite interesting, and I do that often in my workshops. Before we go with founders to set goals and to explore different goal setting techniques and tools, I want to challenge them a little bit, and I'm like, okay, let's hear what's your goal for the quarter, the top goal, the number one. And then somebody shares a number, or like we want to get this number of users, so on. I'm like, okay, let's just play with it. What would be the 10 times bigger?
Yeah, exactly. What would be the 10 times bigger?
Yeah, what would be the 10 times bigger? Let's say.
And if you can't do it, who could do it? And how can you partner with those guys? And what would be the bridge that would take you here from the if there was a way to do it, how would it be done? And I think that's absolutely the thing, and then there is also the defensive position. I used to coming back to the region, if you want, and what being an entrepreneur in the region is, I used to say that who is the strongest enemy of entrepreneurship in this region and or in my country, and people would automatically jump off on the government. It's the government, it's the system, but no, the strongest enemy of entrepreneurship is a superpower entity. It's called mother, that asks every young guy in his career, what are you doing? Are you getting a job? Why don't you get a job, a safe job, the bank or with the government, where you get a good salary and you have safety and you can build everything that you can control.
No, I definitely agree. Just to get back to to what we're exploring with this exercise, and to the words that you said, because I think it's not necessarily, okay, let's say you're early stage founder, you're like, my goal for the quarter is to make 20,000 euro in revenue. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. What would be the 10x of this goal? Well, 10 times more, right? 200,000. Okay, good. What has to happen, as you said? What do I have to change in the way I do things? How do I have to address customers differently? Should we change the product and the way we do things? Should we hire, like, what do we have to do? It doesn't mean you have to commit to this 10 times bigger goal, but the discussions that you have during this strategy session might tell you what are the 2, 3, 4 things we should really focus on if we want to grow, and what do we have to say no to. And I think that's the beauty. You can still say, well, maybe you know what, let's align on, we go for 40K instead of 20, or like you
I'll,
find where it is, right? But
yeah,
there could be a really productive
I'll take it
discussion.
further. I'll take it
Yeah.
further, Stoyan, into saying that if you want to do this high growth stuff, you have to have clear visibility over your 10x. You have to be able to visualize and operationalize your 10x easily. 10 times more than what you are today, 10 times more ARR, MRR, name it, 10 times number of clients, 10 times something. Okay, you have to be able to visualize and operationalize, and you have a concrete plan that is not for the next 20 years, but is for the next 3 at most, how to achieve that 10x. We are not no longer that early stage. We're in between Series B and C, so we are at some level of maturity, and we still make sure that we have clear visibility about what 10x looks like, and draw the clear route to 10x. And what does this mean in terms of investment of resources, of what we expect to happen, in terms of positioning in the market, in terms of markets that we need to open in, and so on. But everything is an operational plan to the 10x. Yeah, it's not a full-blown P&L necessarily, but it is a very strong operational plan that can get us there. And even more so, because 10x is easier when you start from a smaller number. Yeah, even more so at an earlier stage, making a 10x plan that would be possible under certain circumstances within 12 to 18 months is something I think that you need to spend time on, constantly questioning, is there another way that, this business, or a business that is not this, but is very, very similar with this and starts from this, can get to in much shorter period of time, much faster, much bigger.
Just curious now, if you go back in time in the early days of the company, would you advise yourself to be more ambitious or less ambitious with the goals and the visions?
I'd say we have the right mix in the company right now. I'd say we always had the right mix in the company at the time. I think that if we were more ambitious at the very early stage, it might have been hallucination. I'd say we were all in all the time and always expanding faster than the resources that we had, even when we started to get more and more resources and, raising more and more money. So there are times when, of course, we made some mistakes. Everybody does. And when, had we gone slower, we would have not wasted some money, but you can't really plan for that all the time. So I'd say we got it mostly right, with times when we were overbidding, and because we were overbidding, we overspent and wasted some resources, and with times when we were not getting perhaps enough resources, we're not realistic about how much bigger this can get. In the early stage, it wasn't clear for us that, within, 5 years, we would be at a stage where, people look us at, something that kind of looks like a potential unicorn. Yeah, we didn't see it happening so fast in terms of money, but we always recalibrated our ambition based on the current stage at the 10x, 20x, and so on. So I think there is a thing about ambition now that I'm trying to question myself after you questioned me. I'm trying to question myself. There is always a thing about ambition that needs to be dynamic. Yeah. I at the beginning, I think after we started FintechOS, I went to Theo's house at one day with a very nice, expensive bottle of wine, and because it was a summer thing where we're having beers or something like that. It wasn't for the expensive red wine. We said let's drink this when the company is worth $10 million. Well, the time when we reached the apparent valuation of 10 million passed, and I think we had that bottle of wine when the company was like 30 or 50 million dollars in real valuation, because it was going so fast that we didn't have the time to meet together, and you have to have a proper bottle of good wine and so on in the context. So I think and this is about keeping this moving target of what success is.
That's a great story, Sergio. It's the company's already 50 million. Okay, let's drink that bottle because
Yeah,
we need to set up a next.
The wine gets too old,
It's playing in your favor, so that's. But tell me about. And I think that's something many people will benefit from. Is even in early stages, people are struggling with finding the right people, building the right culture, and I don't know, you tell me, but I hear only good stuff about the culture in FintechOS, not from FintechOS people, but generally there's a good name about it, which is how do you build a company in such a short period with 450 people with a common culture? And guys, the time we're recording this podcast is 2022, the beginning. The last couple of years, restrictions, global pandemic, you don't really meet people so much as we used to be and give them hugs and high fives and have conversations by the coffee machine, right? So what did you guys do? And you can maybe tell us more about it. How's the culture? How did you guys define it? And how do you make sure in such a fast hiring rate you keep the core of the culture?
Okay, culture is is a living animal. An animal that has its own life. So whenever you think of culture as being a domestic animal, I think you failed, because it's bloody wild, and it's a beast, and a beast of having its own life. So it can be just slightly tamed, but it's there, it's real, it happens in the organization. And the very simple summary of culture is what people talk among themselves when none of the bosses is around about the company. What people consider to be reasonable, acceptable, inspiring when none of the bosses are around. And when you show up, that reality gets distorted, and your perception as a boss of the reality gets somehow remotely similar to the reality, but it's not definitely the same thing. So culture is real. Culture is happening whether you want it or not. And the moment you start talking about it, it's like in quantum physics. The observer changes the reality, and Schrodinger's cat dies. Just because you looked at it. So the moment you start focusing on culture, you have to be very certain of what you're doing in order not to spoil things. Small companies, smaller than Tribe, smaller than the 150 famous thing of Harari, mentioned by Harari. Companies of that smaller size have an innate culture that is less structured, and there's a sort of tribe-based, family-based kind of, we do things like that, and we are together, and we meet each other every day, and it's easy. And it's only after that, or in the process of reaching that number, that you need to structure some things in order to make sure that the reality gets lived beyond the point when, interacting with the founders, with the entrepreneurs and so on is not possible every day, and there isn't that, flow of whatever. Between wisdom and I would say what makes us natural, what makes us authentic. So something in between that you can interact with every day. So you can't, and that's when you need to put a lot more structure in it. And this is what we're trying to do now. We never know if it's not too much, if it's not overwhelming. But there is a funny thing about the pandemic, because it forced smaller tribes not to interact with one another and to create that culture between people that have interacted more functionally and less fun and natural one with each other. So we're having these meetings, we're a team of 20, and we're having these Teams or Zoom or meetings. And yes, we see each other, and we are very effective on things that needs to be solved and organized. But there is no chit chat prior to the meeting, no chit chat after the meeting. It's so easy to be passive in a meeting if you don't like it. Yeah, you just withdraw. You just move the other screen, the screen with emails on top of the screen where apparently you're participating in a meeting. You can't do that in a face-to-face meeting. Therefore, the face-to-face meetings are a lot more intense. So we lost something, and it was a struggle on what you put instead in order to keep people engaged and in order to give people meaning. And frankly, I think the way I'm looking at is, try to be authentic, try not to bullshit, keep things real, keep things down to earth, put yourself in the shoes of the other. I think that's put yourself in the shoes of the other, and the other won't buy into, whatever nonsense, gibberish, theoretical stuff you would be presenting, unless that resonates with them deep inside. So I think if you keep that, real and authentic and natural, yes, people will work together, because the moment you start having different layers and planning and over conceptualize and try to get people to do things that they don't feel comfortable doing it in a natural way, they will, funny enough, they won't necessarily reject it explicitly. It will just pass by them and you missed it. Yeah, so that's, I think, the thing with the culture. There is another thing that I think we have as a culture in FintechOS, and a lot of these companies that are like us have as a challenge. You need to get people to work together, and the people that need to do that are a very special breed. One, they need to be extremely competitive and ambitious, because we want to do stuff that, to boldly go where no one has gone before. It was when I was much younger. So you want to do stuff that no one has done before. You want to differentiate you don't want just to be the best in class. You can't be the best in class. The best in class means doing better what everybody else has done. That's not the way to reinvent something. That's not the entrepreneurial way. You have to be different. You have to come up with new stuff. Yeah. So there's a level of ambition, of self-challenge and challenge the universe, and that a very competitive nature of people that would want more of themselves and of the others. And we are obviously seeking for them. Now, the problem with the over-competitive people is that they are also competitive to one another within the team. Cutthroat competition, stabbed in their back, and stuff like that. And you don't want those kind of people. So you want the kind of people that can work together normally in a team, that have a certain level of modesty, of humility, of learning process, of seeking for the others around them to have success, helping, what leadership does, helping the other leaders build their own leadership and have the leadership success and so on. So, and this is a bit of a dilemma, of a bit of dichotomy of the people and the culture that is at the same time very aggressive and very go get things and achieve, and at the same time very human and very conscious of us working together and conscious of us achieving success together, and building that connection and being respectful, and not only respectful but helping each other to get to the success. And this is not so easy, because very often the guys that are very aggressive would be not caring that much about the other, and the guys that care very much about the other wouldn't care that much about the success. So how do you balance between the two? I have no clue, but I'm pretty sure we have to balance between the two.
Absolutely. We actually started another podcast which is called The Leaders Who Care, and it's all about bringing in those kind of leaders that are really empowering this culture where you can balance out these two, as you say, the care with the productivity and competition and moving forward. And I'm actually curious if you can reflect what worked for you. Where do you actually, how do you find and attract these people? I once worked with the early stage startup, and the founder, a very ambitious former McKinsey guy, comes to me and he says, Stoyan, how do I motivate people who are consistently underpaid? Because I mean, when you're building in the early stages of a startup,
that's the simplest part. That's the simplest part. Money doesn't solve. Money is not even part of the equation.
What do you think?
You can demotivate people with money, but you can't motivate people with money. You can motivate people with money on a very short term, and I think that's I think very simple. Okay. One thing that I think is important, and perhaps I didn't say it earlier when I was talking about these things, about the culture things and what we believe. What we believe in. Culture is a very toxic word, because in many ways, most of the ambitious people would say, it's culture. Is it HR shit now? We are gonna talk some stuff that has nothing to do. I have so many things to do, and these guys are asking me now to dream, and it's not that. But as how can you build that operational effectiveness in your company? By understanding better what motivates us and what doesn't, by understanding better what are the situations where, if we believe in something, we would have the solution coming out from within, as opposed to trying to describe in a process, in an operational process, how people should react. At some point earlier in my career, I was working, for instance, I was managing a chain of clinics. I was building what eventually became the largest chain of clinics in Romania, by the way, private clinics. So, and I remember the way to describe it was, let's think of the janitor that is cleaning and the floor. Yeah? If they obey the rules, they have to clean from one end to the other and do everything in 6 hours and then start over again. Okay, if they obey the rules. But if patient X in his or her bed is sleeping, perhaps, and you deeply care as a value about the patient, then you, rather than going and cleaning that room at that time, you maybe skip it and come back 2 hours later, although it takes more effort, and do the cleaning without disturbing the patient, because you care. So it's a thing between operational effectiveness and values, and what we care for and how we operationalize stuff that we have to keep in balance. And I think this is important. This is why you have to, even if you don't prescribe it and don't post it on the walls and do all the ridiculous stuff that large organizations sometimes do and nobody believes in, you have to talk about who we are and what we care for. Whether you call them values, but you have to talk from time to time with the organization, with the people that have a stronger voice, whether they are or not official managers or leaders in your nascent organization. But bring them in the discussion, and let's have an agreement of who we are and what we believe in. I think that's that's important. And motivation, especially nowadays, I'm saying especially nowadays, as opposed to the end of the 20th century when I started my career. So especially nowadays, I think motivation is so little about money, because most of the people that are now active in your companies, most of them millennials, some of them already Gen Zs, and even more for Gen Zs, they would roll over their eyes and leave if you just bullshit. That's it. So it's not something that you can where you can get away with half thought, half felt things. The reality is that you have to stay authentic, and you have to have a goal and company goals that resonate with the individual aspirations and individual dreams and individual quest for meaning that people have.
And if you think of the top performers in FintechOS right now, without saying names obviously, but is that what attracted them to join you at the first time? Is that what motivates them? Is that this kind of bigger sense of this bigger purpose that we are serving is really related to my personal quest, or is there something else which you believe?
It may be very different. So while this is very clear for NGOs that are there to save the world, where what you just said, there's this higher purpose that we all live for, and without, I don't know, stopping the global warming, there's and my life doesn't have any meaning. So this kind of thing is very valid there. It's partially valid for us. Some people may join you for the bigger purpose, for the bigger goal. Some people may join you because it's cool. It's cool to be part of a fast-growing startup. Some people may join you because the technology that you're working with is damn interesting, and they love to play with that, irrespective for what. Okay. Some people may join you because you're cool and nice people that they want to learn from. Keep this in mind. Be that cool, nice people that people want to work for. Some people may join you simply because at a certain moment you make an extraordinary career opportunity for them. Because, okay, if you raise enough money, you can also pay very well. So you can come up even with a proposal for a professional that is, if you want, more defensive, and would only take a very well-paid job, by paying very well for that position. And I think this is it. But I think probably I learned this from my first boss many years ago, that people are different, and people don't expect the same from their leadership. And you have to understand what's important for the people, not what you think is important for the average. The average doesn't exist.
And since you're talking about leadership, and we covered a lot of these topics, I'm wondering, was there some specific sources of inspiration, like you had a mentor, or maybe you read some specific books, you followed some author that had a big impact on the way you look at leadership?
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's a very interesting question. I learned a lot from the people that I interacted with. I learned a lot from my bosses throughout my career while I had bosses, and so I think my first boss that I mentioned about was this that kind of I don't know, red meat eater, Midwest American, cutthroat, don't care about anything guy, and I learned from him the way to that business is about money, and that you have to make money, and this is of paramount importance if you want to keep the boat afloat. And I hated him for not being human enough by my standards. And then I was very lucky to meet two guys, funny enough, that were both, one was a corporate guy and the other one was an entrepreneur, that were at the same time very successful business persons. And funny enough, people with very strong religious beliefs, and their life was not about building the business, but their life was about serving the other people, serving humanity. And I think that at least as an espoused and believed purpose. And I thought, wow, I mean, these guys are able to bring this to a whole new level. And how interesting if by building a new business, a new, better business, you can help build a better new world. That gives some purpose to everyone. So I tried to absorb as much of that as I could, understanding that, it's not about the religion, it's about the purpose. So that's, you can do it even if you're not a religious person, like because I'm not. So then what I just said is like very inspirational and but when you start a startup, make sure that you have some people that you talk to that have done the stuff that you're doing before. And there was a number of entrepreneurs that we have sought to interact with, the number of VCs, professional VCs that we have sought to interact with from the very beginning in order to calibrate our hallucinations to become visions and our hubris to become realistic ambition. And I think this was very useful. This was very useful, and it's still very useful. Trying to get to meet people that have had similar challenges with you in the last 5 years or in the last 10 years, and to try to get from them, how does this happen? How does this work? I think, and I'll give you an example. It's it's something that we at the beginning of FintechOS. There is a number of entrepreneurs that we have interacted with in order to keep to understand how a VC-backed company works and what do VCs expect. We were somehow close through a common network to Dan Lupu of Early Bird. Years before we raised money from Early Bird, we were in touch with Dan Lupu seeking his advice on what do you think? How would investor community look at that? What have you seen in the market that relied upon this approach or the other? They've put us in contact with UiPath people to learn from them. Dear UiPath people, what have you done when you were this size? We have sought some people from UiPath ourselves through our natural network. So when you had, on the people side, when you had this need, how did you hire? You don't have yet the resources to hire at that level. How do you bridge in between? It's so the real life experience of people that have done stuff that is similar to your challenges that you have right now, and that it may be a halo effect. What they have done might be wrong, but they were successful. So, and you may think it's right because they were successful, but not necessarily. But even with that caveat, talking to more people that have gone through what you're going through, I think is an essential part of figuring out how success looks like in your case, and what you can see as early signs of success, and what you can do in order to get into that success.
Yeah, that's the reason I'm also super happy to have people like yourself and all the other guests on the podcast to share stuff from your experience, from your journey, not something that you read in a book, but hey, this is what we did. Here are the lessons. And Sergio, I know you have to go very soon. Can we take one final question coming from the audience? I think it's a brilliant way to wrap up this episode. It's coming from Ibrahim Bashir. He's a great guy, a founder, very positive. His question is, how do you communicate your company goals and vision as your team grows?
Okay. One thing is that communication is something that suggests broadcast. So you sit somewhere and you instill in a big conference and a speech, and a 7-hour speech, that passion in everyone, and everybody buys into and say, oh, I haven't heard of something so smart in my life. And the reality is that it's not like that. It has to be communication both ways. So you have to build it with people. You have to build it with people. Now, how we do it, we keep close. We have monthly town halls. We have meetings face-to-face in groups. And when the company was smaller, and the pandemic allowed, we had meetings face-to-face when it was possible. There is a thing about setting the vision, and this is definitely your job as the entrepreneur, making that sure that you communicate and over-communicate that vision. But then make sure that the goals as such are something that are discussed in the team, and you don't own 100% neither the vision nor the goals. People, why do you love IKEA furniture? Well, maybe you don't love IKEA furniture, but there is something after you have struggled for 2 hours to assemble that bloody drawer, yeah, you kind of have a stake in it. Yeah. And I think it's the same with goals and the vision of the company. You have a better stake if you feel that you're heard and you have participated in. And this may be valid for your very top level executive board, but guess what? It's valid for every other guy or lady through the organization, and they might actually have a bigger impact if they believe in it. And believing is buying into, is being part of, is being included when that happens. So inclusion.
Thank you so much, Sergio. And finally, thank you so much for all the insights, all the lessons. Where could people find FintechOS, get in touch with you personally, and just see what you guys can do for them?
Yeah. There are a few offices in London, Bucharest, Craiova, New York, and Amsterdam. I think these are the offices right now. There is a website. There is a sergiu.negut@fintechos.com. And I'm happy to help. I'm happy to help, considering that I'm still, working 127.5% of my time in this firm, but I'm willing to help. I think there is a bigger goal here than building your company and building whatever product that is revolutionizing that industry, and that is about creating communities that can help each other into making a better world for everybody. And I'm not talking about that idealistic love everybody kind of world, but I'm talking about a world where we can, constantly take this civilization forward. Sounds big. But if we all do a small part in this, and we can create this semi-multi-level marketing thing where I help you and another 7 guys, and they help some other 7 guys to build some more value, like true value that people can use, that people can pay for. Hey, we would have also made some money. We would have also lived successful lives, and we would have created a slightly better world, which I hope we can also contribute.
What a powerful message. And those of you, thank you so much for listening, for all the listeners. And if you want to do your little part, and if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share with a friend to get them inspired as well. The podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other major platforms. Sergio, it's been an honor and a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much, and keep on doing what you do with FintechOS.
Thank you, Stan. You keep on doing what you're doing. You're doing it very well. Thank you.
Thanks, man.